guys ready? All right, so we're good to go. So next up, we've got our next talk given by my hero and yours, whether or not you want it. We've got Sammy up here to talk about How I Met Your Girlfriend, so please give him a big round of applause.
Thanks, Gio. Thanks, everybody, for coming to my talk, How I Met Your Girlfriend. We're going to talk about some pretty cool stuff today, some new web attacks and some ways to use them for some pretty cool stuff. So just a little bit about me. My name is Sammy. I do security research for fun, essentially an independent security researcher. I do not do it professionally, not yet. I just think security is awesome and there's so much cool stuff you can do in the realm of security. So I love doing that stuff. You may know me from the MySpace worm from a few years ago. Recently, I authored something called Evercookie, which is popping up here and there. Sorry. I co-founded a company called Finality, which is actually pretty cool. If you're familiar with one of our products, Trixbox, that's a big open source voice over IP system, and a lot of other voice over IP systems for small and mid-sized businesses. Some really cool stuff there. And of course, I love Lady Gaga. Thank you. Yeah. So you're probably saying, you know what, yeah, maybe I heard about this Sammy guy a couple of years ago, but I haven't heard of him since then. You know, why hasn't he done anything? Well, that's because the government would not let me touch computers. So after the whole MySpace worm, I was raided by the government. In fact, the US Secret Service came to my house, came to my company, went through my car, took all of anything that could store data on it, computer, laptop, cell phone, iPod. That was the worst, the iPod, man. So in a total hacker-like raid, the one thing that, you know, American cinema is really good at portraying, how hackers get raided by dozens of people with guns, totally true, totally accurate. I served my time, did over 700 hours of community service, really happy to give back, cleaning up trash, restitution, and I went through 3 years of probation, which is like AOL in real life. So what are we looking at? You know, why are we looking at the web? You know, security is so cool. I mean, there's so many cool things you could do. You could look at reverse engineering. You could look at, you know, cute pink pagers, wireless protocols, Bluetooth, RFID, Wi-Fi. You know, security is so big, and there's so many interesting things that we could do. So why the web? I mean, all the old web stuff is kind of known. You have your XSS or SQL injection. So I like the web, and I think that's one of the things that I like to look at because it's pretty powerful, and we don't always realize it. And one of the coolest things that I like about the web is that it is a code distribution channel. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you wanted to get someone to execute your code, you'd need to write it onto a disk or a CD and mail it to them or hand it to them or something like that, or send it in the mail and label it as 1,000 free hours. And then, only then, would someone be able to execute it. Or today, what you can do is you can create a web page, put some code on that web page, get someone to hit that web page from whatever device they have on the internet, and they will execute code on their system. Not only that, you know, what's the one thing that every system has out there? Every computer has a web browser. And nowadays, virtually every mobile device has a web browser. Even mobile devices are executing code. Now, you want to forget, it's not just rendering HTML and CSS. It's actually executing code many of these times. So I think a lot of the time we forget about that. So I like the web for that reason. I also like it because the browsers are pretty powerful. They can do a lot. Not only do they communicate in HTTP, they also communicate in other protocols like HTTPS and FTP. And you can make them talk in even other protocols they don't understand. So we're going to get to that a little later. So that's why we're looking at the web. Now, typically, before I get into lots of trouble, I'm often browsing social networks. So I was browsing recently, and I stumbled across this page on Facebook. It was Anna Faris's profile. She's a well-known actress for really top-notch movies like Scary Movie. And I'm looking at her profile, and I'm thinking, wow, she's into application security? Awesome. This is the kind of girl I want to get to know. Now, I think Facebook is awesome, right? Facebook has this great feature where you can send a message. So if I wanted to get to know Anna, what would I do? I'd just take my mouse pointer and I'd send Anna a message. So I was about to do that until I realized, you know what? The respectful thing to do is to see, is she in a relationship? Well, I look over. She's not single. It's not complicated. She's in a relationship. All right, so who is this guy? We'll do some research. Little Bing search, and you find some things on him. All right, so he's a CISSP. Interesting. CEO of a security company, wrote a couple of books regarding web application security, co-developed clickjacking with Jeremiah Grossman, which is actually a really cool technology. If you haven't checked it out, definitely take a look at that. He is a certified application security specialist. We won't get into that. So who is this guy? Robert R. Snake Hansen. All right. Very well-known, very, very smart security expert, application security guy. So the problem is, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I want to meet Anna, but this guy Robert is kind of in the way. So the real question is, how do I systematically destroy their relationship? I assume that's what's on everyone's mind. Now, normally what I would do is I'd just break into his account, right? Maybe I could steal his cookies, do something like an XSS on Facebook, hijack his session, log in as him, and then just ruin everything from there. That's the easy approach that would normally work, except for the fact that I'm dealing with, again, someone who's very smart, someone who understands technology, someone who understands security, like many of you. So I'm not going to be able to do that, right? He's likely using something like Firefox with no script, probably is not susceptible to things like XSS or CSRF. He may not even execute JavaScript in his browser. He may be very anal about that. So the problem is he's going to be very hard to attack. So what do we do if we can't hack someone? Well, we don't. We hack the services around them. It's actually probably going to be easier to hack the services he uses than to hack him. So what do we want to do? Well, again, we want to break into his account. So it'd be great if we could steal his cookies, for example. Again, XSS won't work. So why don't we understand a little bit more about cookies and sessions? So we want to log into Facebook, and we want to log in as him. We're not going to steal his cookies. Well, let's understand how Facebook works. So let's browse to facebook.com. The first thing we see is the URL, facebook.com/index.php. What's that mean? Well, .php extension probably means that it's written in PHP. I know what you're thinking. It's pronounced fup. It's not. I looked it up. So what is PHP? Well, it's a very common web language, back-end scripting language. It's really cool, great for rapid development. A lot of frameworks are being built on top of it. You have things like CakePHP, Kohana, CodeIgniter. It's being used more and more over the past few years. So it's really prevalent out there. Now, a really cool thing about PHP is sessions. Now, what we want to do is we want to break into Robert's session. And PHP has essentially one single function for session management. So wherever session management is done, it's always done from this one function. So how is a session, what is a session and how is it passed? Well, sessions are passed within cookies. So when a session is created, what happens is a random string is generated and then it's sent to the browser. The browser then takes that string, stores it in a cookie, and from then on, the next time you go to Facebook, let's say after you log in, you send that unique identifier. That unique identifier tells Facebook, hey, I'm Robert, I'm already logged in, you can show me those really awesome pictures now. So this is a way for Facebook or whatever website to know who you are. All right, so why don't we understand how sessions work? So the great thing about PHP is it's open source. We can pull it up, check out the source. So if we take a quick look at session.c in PHP, we can see how that session is generated when you use the common function called session start. Now, briefly, what we can see is a string is generated for your session. That's the unique identifier. That string contains a couple of things, as we can see. An IP address of the person creating the cookie, the epoch, basically the second that that person created the cookie, microseconds, the microsecond that the person created the cookie, and a random LCG value. All those values are just stuck together in a string and then hashed, either via MD5 or SHA-1. We'll assume SHA-1 because that's more secure and longer than MD5. So if we take a look at all this data, we have an IP address, epoch, microseconds, and this random value. It equates to 160 bits, basically 20 bytes. Once it's hashed, assuming this hash